The one thing I really can't understand is the people that always play the doom game. Because there's an ESPN article, and it basically shows that Detroit has hope for the future. Now, if you listen to some, content creators, you listen to some people in the fan base, they say the sky is falling. They say the sky is falling and there's nothing that you could do about it. The Detroit Lions suck. Their window is closed and they're in bad shape. And look, I don't want to tell you what to do, but don't listen to those people. Just don't listen to them. They're not really educated on the game of football. And that's not no fault of their own. I mean, some people just don't take time to figure out how things work in the NFL. Every team has had injuries. Every team has had bad luck. And usually there's only one team standing at the end that's raising the Super Bowl trophy. But there's this article for the ESPN where it ranked the future power ranking projections. And I thought it was very interesting the way that they brought it down. But here's the deal. How we're gonna frame this is we're gonna read what they say. We're gonna see if we agree. But let's look at the rankings first. So the rankings here are the Seattle Seahawks at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles at number 2, and the Lions ranked number 3 at 86.2. Both the Seahawks and the Eagles had a grade of 88. Now, if you could just go through this article, what they said about the grading system is 100 is elite. There's no elite team in the NFL. A 90 to 99 is great. There's no 90 to 99 team in the NFL. B is a very good team, the 80 to 89. As you can see, there's a lot of very, very good teams. And when you look at Detroit, they're number 3. So let's go on to why they think this. Let's look at the rankings first. For Seattle, they ranked the roster non-quarterback number 1, which is interesting. Quarterback 16, coaching 3, front office 2. You look at the Eagles, tied for second with the roster non-quarterback, tied for second, quarterback 14th, and you got coaching 15th, and you got front office number 1. I don't take any ill will of what they ranked the front offices, okay? Snyder for Seattle is elite. Howie Roseman is elite as a general manager. There's no qualms about that. None. But when you look at how Detroit graded out, non-quarterback roster 6. The quarterback was 13th, coaching 7th, and front office 5th. As you can see, they value the front office and coaching very, very much. And same with the roster non-quarterback. And I think when you look at this roster, you could tell right away that this roster is really good. So let's hear what they say about Detroit's reason for hope. They say as General Manager Brad Holmes begins paying the legendary 2023 draft class that galvanizes this Lions turnaround, future contention becomes tougher and tougher in Detroit. But Holmes and coach Dan Campbell, the Lions' leadership is unquestionable. And Detroit's group of players of young stars entering their primes with Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Penei Sewell, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is as deep as any. And I would add Aiden Hutchinson to that fold. I don't know why they didn't add it. Reason for concern. This was Louis Riddick. He says, I still have concerns about the Lions' ability to rush the passer at a championship level. They were 26th in pass rush win rate last year. Although rookie 2026 second-round pick Derek Moore could lessen some of the burden from Aiden Hutchinson, what is more concerned is the secondary, where Brian Branch is trying to come back from an Achilles tear. Kerby Joseph is rehabbing a knee injury. Both are among the best in the league at their position, so it would be a major blow if they can't get back to their top form. I agree with that 100%. The nugget to know that which days they put down. Detroit has reset its offensive line with youth. Only Miami now has a younger average age among its 5 projected starters for the 2026 season. The Lions starting lineman range in age from right tackle Blake Miller, 22, to center Drew Scruggs, who is going to replace Cade Mays, who's 27. Drew Scruggs is 26. And their bold prediction for 27 to 29 is Hutchinson will win Defensive Player of the Year. His 5 pre-injury games in 2024 always stick in mind when he had 7.5 sacks and an obscene 35% pass rush win rate at edge. Daniel Hunter led qualifiers with that last year with 26.1. Of course, that was a small sample, but Hutchinson has the capability to be elite, even the best edge rusher over a whole season. That was Seth Walder on his thing. And behind Detroit is Denver at number 4. 5 is the Rams. 6 is the Patriots. 7 is the Packers. 8 is the Texans. 9 is the Baltimore Ravens. And 10 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Here's the deal. A lot of people sold you that Detroit's window is closing. Clearly not. When you look at these projections and how they rank the future power rankings, Detroit's ranked number 3. And that's not by accident. When you look at Detroit's roster and what they're capable of doing in this time window, they have a lot of their good players locked up. Sewell, St. Brown, Hutch, Goff is locked up. They just locked up Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, Jack Campbell is locked up. Like, there's a lot of great players locked up. And give credit to Brad Holmes for the way he's drafted. The two guys in front of Brad Holmes in terms of who's in front of him in this rankings is Howie Roseman and Matthew and Schneider. And he's great. Schneider's fantastic. I think he's one of the best general managers. I think he's better than Howie Roseman, to be honest. But when you look at Seattle and you look at Philadelphia, like, they have reasons for concern too. For the Seahawks, their reason concern is the relationship between Darnold and former Clint Kubiak. He left. What's their relationship with Brian Fleury? We know that for Detroit with Johnny Morton screwing things up last year. You got a new scheme in Philadelphia. So look, every team has question marks coming into the year. This power ranking here by ESPN basically tells you that there is no elite team. There is no great team looking forward because it's very, very hard to be elite and great. It's very, very hard. I know here in Detroit, we kind of look at this Detroit Lions team and we go, oh my God, like, they are really struggling. Like, they can't get it together. The 2024 draft class, which was bad, is par for the course in the NFL. Like, this is not something that is new to NFL GMs. Like, go look at Schneider. He's had some bad drafts. Howie Roseman's had some bad drafts. I mean, for God's sakes, he took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, okay? Every general manager has their problems, okay? Whether it's contracts, whether it's drafting, whether it's whatever. How do they get out of it is either their own personal preference. I mean, like Schneider, he builds up the roster. Howie Roseman's a little bit of a risk taker. He'll go make some bold moves, some bold trades, and make the team better. Brad Holmes is like Schneider. He builds through the draft and he'll supplement players on the free agency list, but he's not going to go make these bold moves. And Schneider's one bold move was Sam Darnold, and I think that worked out pretty well. But look, what I'm trying to say is a lot of people, whether it was your favorite content creator, whether it was your favorite radio host, whether it was your favorite columnist, whether it was your favorite Twitter account, they all dabbled in this whole thing that Detroit Lions aren't going to be good. They said there's people that I know personally that I respect, but we just didn't agree. We did not agree that the Detroit Lions were in trouble. We just didn't. Like, I looked at 2024 and I looked at it realistically. They were injured beyond belief. They were not winning a Super Bowl. I looked at it last year. You lose Kerby Joseph, you lose Brian Branch, you're not winning a Super Bowl. And they had problems at offensive coordinator and there were problems in the offensive line. Like, it just didn't work. And 1 year the Eagles missed the playoffs and they win the Super Bowl. Seattle missed the playoffs to win the Super Bowl. The point here is simple. I think when you look at the Detroit Lions, you got to be realistic, and you got to have expectations obviously are raised when you see this roster and you see how good it is. Clearly, ESPN agrees with a lot of us, where they believe the future is really bright for Detroit, and all the people that were saying that Detroit was they're ready to their window was closed, like Greeny said, that dummy, he believes in the Jets every year. He's a dummy. But the reality of the situation is, like, aside from, the Packer fans accounts, aside from the Bears fans accounts, the Viking fans accounts, Detroit's in a great spot. Detroit's in a great spot. And, these rankings show you that Detroit is among the top 3 in the sport. And when you look at some of the teams that are behind Detroit, so Detroit's overall score is 86.2. The full point behind was the Denver Broncos. Full point behind was the LA Rams. 2 points behind was the Patriots. You get to the Green Bay Packers, they're nearly 3 points behind. What I'm trying to say is, look, I know people, they look at this and they say, wow, there's a lot that can be said about this Detroit Lions team. What's going to happen with Brian Branch? What's going to happen with Kerby Joseph? What's going to happen with Drew Petzing? I think when you look at the smart minds in football, not your shock jocks, not your stupid people that you follow on your social media that relish in negativity. There's a reality of the situation. I always try to keep it grounded. Look, you can be negative at some points, but let's be completely honest with the people. Let's be completely honest with people. The Detroit Lions are not in a bad situation. Clearly not. They're the 3rd ranked team in this organization rankings for ESPN. And when I look at Detroit in terms of what they have to look forward to, I look at the Detroit Lions and I say, okay, in my opinion, being non-partial, when you look at the roster, it's really good. You look at guys like at the quarterback position, like Jared Goff. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs. You look at Jameson Williams and St. Brown. That's great. Tesla, he looks like he could be legit. Laporta, you revamped your offensive line, but you have Penei Sewell. How many teams would love to have a Penei Sewell? A lot of them. Yes, you have a potential problem at left guard, but they're playing next to Sewell. Okay. If you can't be good next to Sewell, I have bad news for you. You're probably going to be horrible throughout the entire NFL. You look at Aiden Hutchinson and you look at Derek Moore and Hassanin, who's coming on. You look at guys like Skylar Gill-Howard and Ali McNeil coming off an ACL that looks like he could be the real deal. Tyreek Williams in year 2, like Jack Campbell. There has been a lot of good moves by the Detroit Lions. So when people say the window's closed or the junk like that, they're not being honest with you. They're just not being honest. And I wish people would be more honest when they talk sports, because they try to do these whole things where we're going to peddle out a take. And usually these takes suck. They're just terrible. You literally are peddling a dumbass take. So we try to keep it real on the Detroit Lions News podcast. Look, I think the secondary could be a surprise. I think it could be a surprise, but we'll see what happens there. I think the cornerback position looks a little better than it did in the offseason. So this ranking shows you where Detroit's at. And I really want people to understand, when you think about the Detroit Lions and you think about what they're able to do, you got to think about what they've been able to do with this Detroit Lions team, and in terms of how they built this team. And they've had one bad draft class. We know 2024 is total ass. Whether Rakestraw works out or he doesn't, losing your first round pick to criminal charges is not great. Just not great. But Brett Holmes has done a great job, and clearly the rest of the league agrees with that. Clearly the rest of the league thinks Dan Campbell is a top 10 coach. Clearly they think they have a top 10 roster, top 6, right? You have a quarterback in Jared Goff who he's going to win you games. And look, people are going to sit here and they're going to say, oh, Jared Goff can't win the big guys. Like I said, if you were listening to the podcast, we just started a YouTube channel this year. 2 years ago, I said there's no way they're winning the Super Bowl. No way. And furthermore, I went on the podcast with Tay and Todd, and I said if Detroit does not play perfect and they don't score at least 40 points, they are going to lose to the Commanders. And they did. And it was one of their worst performances of the year in terms of their offense. So I don't sit here and look at this situation and go, oh, yeah, I'm not going to poo-poo it to poo-poo it. I'm not going to make it seem great to make it seem great. The reality of the situation is Detroit's a really good team. It was reflected in the rankings. It was reflected in the way they view Campbell, how they felt about Brad Holmes. And I think when you look at this Detroit Lions team and you look forward this year, I think there's a lot to look forward to. And even going past this year, like 27 and 28 and 29, like this Lions roster is built for the future. They have a lot of key players locked down to critical contracts. And the cap is only going to rise, baby. The cap's only going to rise. And I think if you could give Brad Holmes a little credit on how they structure the contracts, Mike Disner, how they structure the contracts, that's what's going to separate Detroit from a lot of teams going forward. So we'll see what happens. But I thought the article was interesting. I thought, the way people viewed the Detroit Lions in terms of what they thought about the Detroit Lions before the season. I thought a lot of people, especially if you look at Twitter's a cesspool of just negativity in terms of in dumb takes, just terrible takes. But we'll talk to you guys in another episode of Detroit Lions News Podcast. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Please subscribe. We need to get to 1,000. If you help us get to 1,000, we'll do a giveaway. Okay? All right, we'll see you guys in the next video as we talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast.